Hello, everybody. I am here to share with you a couple of books about spring. The first one is called The Curious Garden. The Curious Garden. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors, and you can imagine it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the curious garden explored every corner of the railway. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious and about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. And that is the end. Okay, the next one is called The Bog Baby. Look at all those bog babies. Long ago, when we were little, me and Chrissy did something bad. We said we were going to Annie's house to play, but we didn't. We went fishing all by ourselves, which wasn't allowed. Chrissy said there was a magic pond in Bluebell Wood. It was only ever there in the spring. When it rained, it made a huge puddle in the dell, and pond creatures came. We could fish for newt, she said. I won't tell if you won't. So we went. We found the pond. It was squelchy around the edge. The bluebells squeaked under our boots. We fished and fished, but we didn't catch a newt. We caught something much better. We caught a bog baby. He was the size of a frog, only round and blue. He had boogly eyes and a spiky tail, and I do remember he had ears like a mouse. He came swinging through the flower stalks and jumped into the water. He floated up and down on his back and sucked his toes. That's when I fished him out. He didn't struggle. He sat in my hand and looked surprised. He was as soft as jelly, like he had no bones. When we stroked him, he flapped his wings. They were no bigger than daisy petals. They seemed too small for him to fly. Chrissy said he might be able to fly if we blew on his wings. We blew and blew, but all we did was blow him into the mud. He didn't try to escape. He just sat still with his paws over his eyes. When we put him in a jam jar, took him home, and hid him in the shed. He was our bog baby. He wasn't meant to be a secret. We wanted to show Mom, but we didn't dare. If we did, she'd know that we didn't go to Annie's. We made our bog baby a beautiful home in a bucket. Gravel and shells and clean water. Whenever he saw us, he jumped up and down. We picked him up and played with him. He was very ticklish. We fed him cake crumbs. We loved our bog baby. Our friends loved him too. We sneaked him into school in a margarine tub. When the teacher wasn't looking, he played in the sandbox. In the afternoon, he slept in his tub on some damp cotton balls. Chrissy made him a collar and a leash, and we took him for walks in the field. Once a crow almost ate him, but we scared it away just in time. We took great care of our bog baby. At least we tried, but he got sick. He didn't jump up and down anymore. He turned pale and his wings drooped. He wouldn't touch his cake crumbs. We gave him all sorts, but he spat them out. We wanted to ask Mom for help, but we didn't dare because of Annie. But the bog baby got thinner. He wouldn't walk on his leash, and he hid under his shell. There he is. He wouldn't come out, no matter how much we loved him. Mom found us in the shed. Chrissy wouldn't say why we were crying. We'd promised not to tell, but I blabbed. Mom wasn't angry, though. When she saw who was in the bucket, she smiled, and her eyes went misty. She said she hadn't seen a bog baby since she was little. Please make him better, we cried. We love him so much. I know, she said, but the bog baby is a wild thing. He doesn't belong here. He isn't meant to eat cake or walk on a leash or sleep in a tub. She picked up the bucket and we followed her out. If we really loved the bog baby, we had to do what was best for him, no matter how much it hurt us. That was real love, and that is why we let him go. Back where he belonged, living in the woods, playing in the pond, sleeping in the damp leaves under the moon. We never saw him again. I think he grew up and had babies of his own. Last spring, my daughter found the magic pond, and guess what she saw? Hundreds of bog babies swinging through the bluebells, catching flies, floating on their backs, sucking their toes. That's what she told me, and that is what I believe. And that is the end. Okay, our last book for spring is if you plant a seed. If you plant a tomato seed, a carrot seed, and a cabbage seed, in time, with love and care, tomato, carrot, and cabbage plants will grow. If you plant a seed of selfishness in a very short time, it will grow and grow and grow into a heap of trouble. But if you plant a seed of kindness, in almost no time at all, the fruits of kindness will grow and grow and grow. And they are very, very sweet. And that is the end. I hope you enjoyed the stories today. Those are some of my favorite books. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!